So, good evening, all the friends, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all in this 60th session, in the side event of the 60th session of this Commission for Social Development. My name is Sudeep Sharma, and I work in Vagdara, which is a civil society organization working for more than 2 decades with the tribal communities in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat states of India. With 1 lakh tribal farmers in 1,000 villages of 3 states, Vagdhara is doing efforts for improving the livelihood security, food and nutrition security, child rights situation, and community empowerment, creating sustainable pathways for their development. So, on behalf of Vagdhara and our tribal communities, I again welcome you all in this virtual side event of Commission for Social Development. Um, we all have seen the situation of lakhs of migrant workers coming back to their villages, barefooted, with very little or no penny in their pockets. The COVID-19 pandemic had affected many aspects of our social and economic life, resulting in the breakdown of food and livelihood security of millions of the people in the country, or we can say across the globe. Every section of the society was severely affected by the outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic. The tribals, who are mostly the small and marginal farmers, uh, they were one of the most affected sections of the society. Although the COVID-19 pandemic had severe effects on the well-being, livelihood, and health of everyone, but how the indigenous agriculture practices, which were adopted and practiced by the tribal communities in their areas, uh, that helped supported them a lot during the pandemic situation. To share about those indigenous practices is the main focus of this side event. And also, this event will emphasize on the need of incorporating Mahatma Gandhiji's ideologies into the development process of the tribal communities, as well as the key asks. What are those key asks for to advocate for making the vulnerable communities resilient towards such pandemics or any other difficult or unforeseen difficult situations. So, to have a detailed discussion on these aspects, we have three eminent speakers with us. Rajendra sir will join very soon. So, first of all, I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Rajendra Singh ji. He will join us very soon. So, Dr. Singh is a renowned water conservationist and an environmentalist. He is popularly known as Waterman of India, and he has been honored with the Asia's most prestigious Raymond Magsaysay Award 2001, and he also won the Stockholm Water Prize Award. Currently, he is working as the chairperson of Tarun Bharat Sangh NGO. And we are very fortunate to have Ashok Bhai Chaudhary ji with us. Ashok Bhai ji is a senior Gandhian leader and an activist. He is the General Secretary of Adivasi Ekta Parishad, which works towards creating a peaceful world by promoting tribal social culture, unity, justice, and equality. He was also the part of the delegation to represent Indian Adivasi at Earth Summit, which held at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Currently, he is the chief functionary of Vedachi Pradesh Seva Samiti Valod, and he is the trustee of the famous Swaraj Ashram at Vedachi Surat. We heartily welcome you, sir. Uh, Next, I welcome Mr. Jayesh Joshi. Although he is the host of this event, but as a moderator, I take this opportunity to welcome him. Mr. Joshi is the secretary and CEO of Vagdhara, and for more than 2 decades, he has committed his life toward bringing integral changes in the lives of tribal farmers and their children. Welcome you, sir. So, before going to our speakers, I'll request the participants, if you have any questions, please write down in the chat box and we'll try to respond them as the time allows. किसी के कोई सवाल हो तो कृपया आप चैट बॉक्स में लिखिएगा और समय के अनुसार हम उसको रिस्पॉन्ड करने की पूरी कोशिश करेंगे. So to begin with, I first request Shri Jayesh Joshi ji to share what are those indigenous agriculture practices which supported the tribal farmers during the difficult situation and are significant for the resilient recovery from COVID-19. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sudhipji. First, I would like to welcome, and we have a great chance. We are with our Vagdhara's chairperson, Shri Brijmonji Dikshit Sahab is with us. So, sir, welcome you. And Ashok Bhai, he's a real practitioner, and it's quite difficult for me to say anything about the Adivasi best practices or Adivasi resilient lifestyle or anything. But really, Ashok Bhai, welcome you as on behalf of the host of. But now I am speaking here as not as a host. I am speaking here as a practitioner farmer in the tribal area. So really, the situation was very difficult to the entire world, entire globe in last 2 years. And when I got a call from many agencies, many friends, and many practitioners, so usually they asked, Jayesh, kya situation hai samudaya ki? And I asked that time very confidently, no, we are very much lucky. We are in the tribal area. हम बहुत किस्मत वाले हैं कि हम आदिवासी क्षेत्र में हैं. And Corona cannot harm us. That was my first statement. And definitely, Corona cannot harm. The certain difficulties happened here due to the new market-driven practices or certain dependency on the market. जो किसानों ने बदलते परिवेश में अपने आप को बाजार के भरोसे किया था, जमीन छोड़ के चले गए थे, उन्होंने समस्याएं देखी हैं. So only the people who face difficulties, who depends on the market, and they do not believe on their own resources. That's why they were in the panic. So as Sudhipji told me, what was the how the agriculture practices help in the pandemic time. So many friends also aware about the lifestyle of the Adivasi parivars, families. They usually live in the different hamlets, scattered households. They never believe on the freezed food. They never believe on the fridge water. They never believe on the air condition. So that practice helped them that time to fight against the COVID. And just I shared an incident on the first day of that COVID lockdown. I visited many villages. That time, the community told us, कोई चिंता नहीं है, पलाई मजदूर के लिए हमें किसी और की जरूरत नहीं है, हम अन्नदाता हैं, अन्न हमारे पास है. Every people told that time, we have grain, we can fight with the pandemic, we do not need any type of support, we can. So that voice, that confident voice significantly expressed that time they have their own sovereignty. That is the tribal area. So the thing is important, what is the indigenous practices which help them to fight against the this type of pandemic. If any adivasi, if you find any adivasi identity, so they always live with their soil. So that's why we call, they are the real bhumiputra. They have their own forest, they have their own water, they have their own seed. So many developed farmer that time faced the problem about the fertilizer and seed, because market was not there and they were struggling a lot. But adivasi farmers was confident. They had their seeds, they had their organic manures, and even then they've grown a lot, because of no one can contaminate that time. They are with their hamlets. Even then the recovery was fast because of the fresh vegetable, their indigenous fruits that time. And they find the herbal medicines grown there. The entire India, the government of India that time has the Ayush kadas, and fortunately we Adivasi area have already very well aware about our kadas, which we grown, which the nature grown for us from many years from. So that is the fortunate part of the tribal area of the tribal community. So after the pandemic, the who were in the families, they were quite confident and very safe. And who's back from the migrants and from the cities, so that time they felt the real sovereignty is with our soil, and they grown a lot, and grown the vegetable, fruits, their own forest fruits, as well as pulses and mixed cropping. So mixed cropping is the part of the tribal farming. It's called hangri kheti. So usually the hangri kheti, so it's a diet diversity was in the plate. They believe on the uncultivated food. When we did the nutritive analysis of the different kind of uncultivated forest item, so it was the vitamins rich fruits. Vitamin C is the by default there our indigenous fruits. So that was the very helpful for fighting against the COVID. So definitely if we talk about the how we cannot stimulate or segregate the any specific food items or farming items, but yes, when entire world was facing the lot of problem, that time the Adivasi area was quite safe, and they had their own food items. And when the entire world is struggling for the day-to-day vegetable, and we Adivasi families have the fresh vegetable on our hedge, on our fencing, on our farm fencing. when entire world facing the fresh water. So we had we can find our water with our source. When entire world were facing the problem for fresh air, that time the fresh air was with us, and the isolation is by default the isolation. Definitely we can prove is our culture, is our practices, our food practices, our farming practices, which is the sustainable farming practices, is only and only the best solution for, and less dependency solution as the sovereignty solution for the entire world during the pandemic. And it shows a good example for the world. So I wish we can, and the policymaker and government, find the or analyze the best practices for the entire world from our community, from our area, from the tribal areas. Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Over to Sudeep.
Thank you, sir. It was really encouraging to know about such indigenous practices. Like you said about the mixed hungry kheti or mixed cropping, the cultivation of indigenous fruits and vegetables. And you said the indigenous culture and the farming practices is the solution for sovereignty. This was really encouraging for all of us. Next, I request Ashok Bhaiji to share with us how can the development of tribals be done following the ideologies of Mahatma Gandhi's. Over to you, Ashok Bhai.
Yes, good evening to everybody, respected dignitaries and friends. As in my introduction you have said, I participated Rio conference to facilitate the parallel conference of indigenous leaders at Rio. There we discussed the different issues of Adivasis. As we all know, the basic issues are regarding the cultural identity of the Adivasis, the resources where they are living. So alienation of resources or grabbing of resources is the major issue in tribal areas of the world. And thirdly, the all kind of discriminations happening with the tribals, socio-political, economical, at all levels. As we know, the Adivasis or the tribals, our perspective and relationship with the environment, the roots of our perspective lies in the symbiotic relationship to the earth, based upon the delicate balance between its living parts. We are only caretakers of our Mother Earth, and therefore that each generation is responsible to ensure the survival for the seventh generation. This basic law was the driving force behind the development of our culture and values, which reflects our socio-political and economic institutions. Our clan system and decision-making processes based on consensus of division of labor based upon needs ability to contribute and share the social cohesion as well as respect for life. Respect for people and for the earth is linked together in order for people to survive and care for future generation. We have also stated at Rio that the contrast between indigenous perspective and dominant perspective, that is sacred versus secular relationship to the earth, collective interest and responsibility versus individual interest and responsibility, and way we consider the life of the planet as a gift of creator or resources to be used, the reason of our existence as it relates to sustainability. Utilizing the organic matter of the earth, viewed as a sacred circle of the life for a linear growth for human satisfaction. Our traditional economies have been disrupted constantly by development schemes and introduction of cash crops production for exchange. These have led to dispossess and marginalized us from our land base and created dependence. So this was our submission to Rio conference. As we know, the Gandhian ideals or the Gandhi's vision for the globe was, as I quote, most people will live in small villages, work in agriculture or cottage industries, either family owned or owned and managed cooperatively. All kinds of work will have equal status and wages. There will be high degree of village and regional economic self-sufficiency, with low amount of goods being transported over large distances. Villages will be politically autonomous, able to take most decisions themselves through participatory face-to-face democracy. As Gandhi mentioned in the Hind Swaraj, the villages will be the sovereign states. There will be large degree of equity and all kinds of domination, discrimination will be reduced. Everyone will be eco-literate. That they practice reduce, reuse, recycle, and regenerate the resources and live as per the natural law that Gandhi mentioned. There is sufficiency in the world for man's need, but not for man's greed. It is only with this limits to wealth along with equity, then conflict will be reduced, leading to peace and truth. So I think this is the Gandhi's vision about the India, his dream about the India, and not only the India, but for the globe also. Gandhi's vision about industrialization is also we have to see, because we are talking about the development. So mainstream development is with the technology, and basically it is industrialization. So what has happened? The most people are living in cities, towns, work in large factories and offices, either owned by huge corporates or governments. There are inevitably the large differences in status and wages. Everything is connected with everything, goods and services also unequally distributed. Market over the large distances through massive use of transportation is waste of energy and resources. Most decisions are taken centrally. So decision-making process is not representative democratically. Continuous upward economic mobility. So we are preaching, teaching, everything is for material wealth, greed, and these are the main human motivating forces. Therefore, to dominate nature, so it is essential or it is need for the industries or corporates that they have to dominate the nature and extract as much as possible and quickly as possible the human knowledge and the resources. And they are using the technologies for political and economic systems for this purpose. So this is the situation of the mainstream development. So now we have to choose. And these are the Gandhian ideas, which are very similar to the perspective and perception and philosophy of the indigenous people, our worldview of the indigenous people. Our values, so our value system and our lifestyle and our worldview, these all are from the nature. So we are learning from the trees that they are giving everything, but they are not discriminating anybody. Rivers are giving the water, but they are not discriminating whether they are animal or human beings. So this is the kind of values we learn from the nature. So our relations are eco-friendly relations with the nature. Not only that, but we are respecting and not as a owner of the earth, Mother Earth, but as a son of the Mother Earth. So our perception is very much similar to Mahatma Gandhi. As we have, after the Rio, we have seen that United Nations has declared the 9th August as the Indigenous Day, International Indigenous Day. Then from 1994 to 2004, it was the first decade for the indigenous people. Then from 2005 to 2014, the another decade was declared. In 2007, they declared the Rights of Indigenous People, Declaration of Indigenous Rights. And then in 2015, they have declared the Millennium Goals also. So United Nations is also worried for the indigenous people. But unfortunately, the member nations, they are not responding positively because they are also the governments, as we are seeing the globally, that the democratic countries, even in democratic countries, the governments slowly becoming the weak and the state becoming the strong. That means the corporates, the handful people of the world, they are controlling the policies and they are not respecting the human rights and the human needs. They are working for the selfish motives for making the profits. They are raising their egos and everything, what they are getting out of it. But that has created the all kind of problems on the Mother Earth. So, in this situation, the Gandhi's idea of development, and not it is for only the Adivasis, it is for all, I think. Adivasis are already practicing the Gandhian principles, Gandhian values, and the Gandhian uh, thoughts or Gandhian preaches or Gandhian practices in their life. Because we are living simply, we are using the minimum resources from the earth. Mostly we are using the resources which are renewable. We are minimum using the resources that those are non-renewable. So in that sense, we are practicing the sustainable development practices. So in that situation, I think we have to mobilize the people, we have to make aware the people that the Gandhian principles, though the modern world has already rejected the Gandhian principles, they are worshipping the Gandhi, but they are not respecting his principles. So this is the tragedy, and not only that, but in our country also people are not respecting the Gandhi as a solution of the major issues of the world. So these are the pity and tragedy of this age, I can say. So, but uh, we should not lose our hopes. We should live with the hopes. And lastly, I conclude with this story. One anthropologist proposed a game to children of the African tribe. He put a basket of fruits near a tree and told the kids that the first one to reach the fruit would win them all. When he told them to run, they all took each other's hands and ran together, then sat together, enjoying the fruits. When asked why they ran like that, as one could have taken all the fruit for oneself, they said, Ubuntu. How can one of us be happy if all the others are sad? Ubuntu is a philosophy of African tribes that can be summed up as I am because we are. So, Ubuntu to everybody, and thank you to invite me in this webinar. Thank you to organizers. Thank you to Jayesh Bhai and friends.
Thank you, Ashok Bhai. And it was really very inspiring thoughts you have shared with us. You shared that tribals are already practicing the Gandhian philosophy. And also, it was very heartening to know that you shared about that UN is very concerned about the indigenous community. You shared about your submission at the Earth Summit. That was really wonderful. As Dr. Rajendra Singh ji is engaged in a very important some meeting, he is not here. So, may I request Ashok Bhai ji again, if you could please share what should be as per you, what should be the policy agendas which needs to be advocated for the sustainable development of the tribal communities?
So,
Or in fact, I would also request Jay sir if you can also share the policy agendas. First, Ashok Bhai can share, then Jay.
So as because in at Rio conference also, I have to present the views of the Adivasis. So there, what we presented, I just repeat here. So as we have to address the challenges. The major challenges are the risk to lose the cultural identity, modern economic dependency, class and community-based discrimination, structured violence, violation of human rights, corporate and state repression. So for this, we suggested the roadmap for preserving the plant nature, not only nature, but for the planet also. That first of all, we have to restructure our educational system. Because in education, we are giving these ideas to our children that how to earn more and how we are how we can build our career, and that is the our major teachings. So there we have competition, and competition always lead to uh, war. Lastly, so that we suggested that this kind of curriculum should be eliminated from the education system. We have to develop the new curriculum for the our education institutions, from kindergarten to universities. So that was our first suggestion. Then the modern economic structures. So somewhere we have to put the limit that which industrialization we will do. As the Gandhi said, that the machine should not rule us. It should be under our control. So technology today is in the hands of few people, and they are using it as for exploitation of the natural resources and the human beings. So that also we have to limit. And if we need the industrialization, then it should be the under the control of the state or the society. So the ownership of the industries which are need for the human betterment, that should be controlled by the society. So that also we suggested. And then the appropriate technology and the responsibility of the scientist towards the mankind and the nature. So scientists should also understand the responsibility for the human society as well as for the sustaining the nature, protecting the nature for the future generations. So that also we have said. And what at the community level we can do is we should at least we have here also as Adivasi Ekta Parishad, we suggested 7 programs for the starting point, startup. That nobody should remain hungry in our village. Our village Gram Sabha should ensure that. Then nobody should die without the treatment or the medicines. And we should also find the local remedies, the local medicines. We should use more. And that knowledge we have to find or search from our elders. So that also we suggested. Then third is the education system. That nowadays the education is becoming the um, beyond the reach of the poor people. So we should ensure that the village Gram Sabha should ensure the education, and at least primary level education we should ensure. So that thing also we have to do. The thirdly, fourthly, we suggested is to regenerate the natural resources, that is land, uh, forest and water, that should be protected, preserved and regenerate. So how we can do that? That also, and that only will provide the employment to the rural areas. So because we have also classification in the society. So we have different classes, and landless laborers are also uh, in big number in the villages now. So they need the employment also. So we should establish the processing industries for our raw material which we are producing at the village level. So we should not give the raw materials to the industries or any other outsider agencies. We should process it, and then we have to give it to others. Then the fifth, we should have some study groups in our villages and the cultural center at our village, so that we should reduce our dependency uh, on the other things of enjoyment. So then lastly we said that we should have the appropriate technology. We should produce the technology. So research and production of the appropriate technology, that should be also in the cluster of the villages, that centers we can develop. So these are the programs we suggested for the uh, I can say for sustainable development, we can say. So that is the starting point. We can add many things in it. So these are the things we have already started in the different villages. And we are also knowing the experiment of Mendalekha village at Gadchiroli district. And also in your area, the Gramjan villages are also. So they have also the good experience that in Gramdani villages, still there are no landless laborers in the Gramdani villages, because it was the condition that everybody should get the land. So Gandhi was also in that favor that the small pieces of land should be with all the people. So this is also the big challenge, and that the resources how people can possess. So redistribution of the natural resources or wealth is also essential for the um, self-dependency or the self-reliance, or for the autonomous society, the free society. Self-governance also is important part. So disputes should be resolved in the village itself. So that is also one program we suggested. So I think these are the remedies we suggested. And at present, we are practicing in many villages also.
Yeah, certainly, sir. These were really very significant suggestions. May I request Jay sir to, if you have any thoughts on the policy agendas for development of tribal communities?
After the son of soil address the recommendations, after nothing can be possible to share here. So Ashok Bhai has been already covered many things, but yes, just one thing, as we our Adivasi Swaraj Sammelan discussed 4 5 years before. mm, the policy makers have to find the situation or status of the resources as the 5 decades before, the area of forest, the area of water bodies, the varieties of the seed, climate resilient varieties, as well as the livestock situation, and find a difference between the development and the real happiness. So we can find the real situation. So what we want to achieve, the real happiness and the sovereignty, or we find only so-called development. So that is another challenge. So our specific demand from the entire world, we have to respect the real solution from the uh, indigenous practices, which now we are calling Gandhiji Swaraj. Is the we cannot find the happiness on the cost of others, on the cost of the nature, on the cost of other world. So that is the important, and it's a basic demand or basic ask. Second is the if you talk about the seed, so the any companies or corporate or governments or agencies has to ensure that any varieties or any developed variety cannot harm our indigenous varieties, which was the climate resilient variety. Not only the seed variety, even then the our microbes, even then our uh, uh, biodiversity. So that is another remark. And third is the which was our culture. So ensure the new market practices never been harm our indigenous practices. Like the heart was our best practices and best negotiation place for the agri produce and our daily lives. But after the market, many officers decided the heart is not good. So the in the norms, it has to be ensured what we can decide in our gram panchayat with our decision. So pesa is the most important in our and pesa is the only solution for the food security, for the economic security and our sovereignty. So the last, we have to ensure the development cannot be possible on the cost of nature, on the cost of other lives, on the cost of our practices. Thank you. Thank you, Stuji.
Thank you so much, sir. So there's one question. I'll request Ashok Bhai ji to respond on this. Whether there is need in the education system to bring children and youth more closer to nature.
Yes, because today the problem is of disconnection. Our all the systems, they are disconnecting the children and youths from their families also, from their communities also, and from their uh, land also. So this is the situation. So it is very essential, and without them we cannot change anything. So, but the effort should be made by all. Adivasi leaders, activists, concerned intellectuals, citizen groups, and even the governments also. So all the people have get together and we have to produce, we have to practice we have to develop the alternative model also collectively. So these things we have to do in the public interest. We can use the many things for making the awareness and joining the people with us. There are several charters, conventions, declarations by United Nations bodies also that can be used for generate the awareness about the conditions and human rights also. So we can use these things because the national governments, they are generally violating the things. So we can use these things also against our policymakers. So we can propose, we can create the debate also on the policies, on the rights, and on the governance itself. So we have to question that, I think, and we have to create the debate for that. So in future, that we have discussed with Jayesh Bhai also, and we have discussed with the many people also that we will gather somewhere, and next month we will gather perhaps at Ranchi. That more than 100 intellectuals will gather there, and we will discuss on the policies, on the rights, and on the governance. So we have to uh, make impact on the policies also of the government, and we will invite few eminent political leaders also, and we will present there to them also. So we will sensitize them also. We cannot say we will make them aware or we will teach them, but we will sensitize them about that. So this will be the future programs for that.
Ji, sir. And I think the second question in this answer only. Do you have, uh, are you okay with the response? Or should I ask, sir? Yeah, yeah. Okay. So anyone want to ask any other question? Okay. Uh, so I think there are no more questions. So I am extremely thankful and grateful to Ashok Bhaiji and Jay sir for sharing your wonderful thoughts and your experience of indigenous agriculture practices. And we hope this will certainly be taken up by our communities at a larger scale, and eventually this will be very significant in their development, and also making them resilient towards some difficult, unforeseen situations. So I also thankful to all the participants for joining our side event. And there's one we think world need to learn from the tribal community. Yeah. So thank you all the participants for joining our side event. Uh, and for now, thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the Dikshit Sahib is with us. If Dikshit Sahib can.
आकिब जी, दीक्षित साहब का वो को होस्ट बना दीजिए प्लीज.
आप अनम्यूट हो सकते हैं सर. It's very appreciable that Wagner has taken this special topic, particularly the sustainable agriculture or indigenous practice to protect the tribal of this southern Rajasthan, particularly into this COVID period. And Jayesh Bhai has very nicely painted the picture of the tribals, that what happened during this corona period and how the tribals has sustained this. And certainly, definitely I should not speak this thing, but the major focus is on the technology, and technology means leaving the indigenous practices and adopting new type of practices, and which is very dangerous at this stage, that without looking to the resources and nature of the tribals and their prevailing practices, several recommendations are coming, which is highly input oriented. And I don't think these tribals are in positions to adopt these new practices. And certainly the public system should uh, be take keen interest in facilitating these at least indigenous practice, which are age-old practices and remain always successful even under the very odd situation also. So these are the one of the good practices, and hopefully what Agdara is doing on this indigenous agriculture practices, I hope it will be have some certainly definite impact in this community. Also, Ashok Bhai has given very good narrative examples of the several Gandhian philosophies and the protection of the rights of the tribals. I wish success on this 16th session on the Commission on the Social Development, and hopefully we will be continue with the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So Jay sir, can we conclude?
Yeah, we should. The only a line of concluding from my side, the we Adivasi people is only and only our lifestyle is only and only solution for the sustainable development world, which the using by entire world. We were we had our sovereignty world, we have our sovereignty solution, and we will always sovereign with our practices. No one can contaminate our world, and we will be the best solution for entire world. So hopefully in this session, this sentence, this word and recommendation will be seen by the entire UN system. Many wishes to all of us.
Thank you, sir. अशोक भाई, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं? आपका क्वेश्चन?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.